slight change of plans here. Since that We Baby Bills have been delayed until we reach January of next year, and the fact that I said something about Camp Cola in my yesterday's video, I guess that comparison video is gonna have to wait until next year, so that's why I'm replacing my comparison video with my review of Rugrats in Paris, the movie, which is a video that I've scrapped in favor of other videos for this month. Granted, I could replace this video with something else, but at this point, this entire month is loaded, and it's a lot more painful for me to actually think of different alternatives while I just leave Rugrats into the scrap bin after 4 years since I last talked about the show. Mainly the Go Wild movie that I've reviewed in 2017. Anyway, even if I didn't watch all the episodes from Rugrats and don't remember all the moments, I still remember the moment about Chucky's mother passing away and the fact that it really affects him so much that he wants a new mom, like his friends have since this series began. And for anyone who defends this movie, saying that this is the best movie in the trilogy, I can easily agree with you, mainly for how it caters the character so that we can actually see where they're coming from. If the third movie actually centering around Lil and Phil about how to grow up and stuff, it would have been a lot more better instead of just being mostly a crossover, but that's just mostly my opinion. The way this movie starts off with Chucky not being able to dance with her mother because he doesn't have a mother anymore, along with seeing his friends dancing with their mothers, it's really a shame. I can guarantee you that moments like these can really show how doing the sequel can be done right instead of just rehashing the same elements as before. Granted, this movie isn't perfect, but I'm gonna get to most of the problems later. Being early at the moment, let's go talk about the villain of this movie, Coco LaBouche. Let me just say this right now, considering that the first movie and the third movie mostly have an animal antagonist, but they don't have a devious motivation like what LaBouche does in this movie, I have to admit that they instantly made this villain a lot more menacing the more I remember it as I get older and older. Because for one, it's really obvious that she hates children no matter what. And the fact that she has to marry someone so that she can have a child to prove the president of the Reptile franchise so that she can be president really proves to me of how much selfish and way more different this character is compared to other villains, and that's mostly from cartoons. I have to admit that if we compare this character with the other Disney villains or any of the DreamWorks villains, she will probably be in the middle of the list, but at the same time, not really the best when it comes to other motivations from other villains. And considering that Chaz, which is Chucky's father, is completely oblivious of everything that she does, I am actually kind of aware of what the alternative ending will have looked like if she actually marries Chaz. Trust me, Chaz may be like every other parent in this show, but at the same time, I'm mostly going to be feeling bad for him of what the alternative life he has if he's the husband of Coco LaBouche. But getting back to her, she really carries this entire film, and the fact that Angelica actually thinks that she's gonna get what she wants only for her to be fooled, I gotta admit that Coco LaBouche is way worse than Angelica. Now, as for what Angelica did in this movie, I have to admit that it was way too devious for her to actually have Chaz go out with Coco in the first place. This is literally the same character who just can't think ahead of time, and the fact that the baby is a lot more stupider, and she may be right, but at the same time, she doesn't even get over the fact that the babies can still do crazy things from time to time. She instantly forgets everything from the first movie, and she completely moves on like nothing really happened in this movie, despite Chucky getting a new mother and all. I would easily discuss Angelica a lot more, but the thing is, I really don't watch the show that much, and I've seen characters a lot more worse than Angelica. I'm just saying. But getting back to this movie, even if there were a few moments that I cringe, sorry, I just didn't like the humor from this show, I still think that it still does a good job on establishing Chucky's situation on having the princess of Reptar becoming his mother, but at the same time, he's still a baby like his friends, and I have to admit that there's always a way for him to actually realize that you don't need everything from a princess in order to get what you want. All he ever wants is a mother in general. Granted, his development doesn't really become established as we reach into the later seasons along with the third movie, but the fact that Chucky wants to be brave and the fact that he can't be able to because he's too young to handle some serious situations like Coco LaBouche being his possible future mother, I'm pretty sure that anyone who's in Chucky's shoes in this movie will probably do the same thing regardless. As for Tommy, Dill, Phil, and Lil in this movie, even if they mostly contributing the comedy in this, they're a lot more supportive compared to how they were portrayed in the last movie, because in that movie where they're against each other because Tommy kept taking care of Dill all the time, they are actually enjoying themselves in Reptar Land ever since that Stu completely had a phone call that he needs to get to Paris in order to repair the reptile machine. You know, every time I'm mistaking Japan in this movie than Paris, it really sums up of how much I completely don't understand why all this is taking place in Paris instead of Japan. But again, I'm gonna get to that later. But to give the characters credit in this movie, even if they're not the most intelligent people, which isn't saying much, I can still say for a fact that without these characters, Chucky wouldn't be able to head to Notre Dame to stop the wedding. Let me just say right now that the climax in this movie is, even if it's not one of the best I've seen, I still think it's actually way over the top, which is actually the entertaining way. Getting into the new characters, Kira and Kimmy, people have addressed that Kimmy was the character that made Rugrats jump the shark. Since that they didn't like Dill from the first movie, and they didn't even appreciate Kimmy being a new character in the show. I need to make one thing clear. I think that Rugrats introducing new characters did a lot more better than what the Fairly Odd Parents did in 2008. Granted, she doesn't do much in this movie when she's an additional character, but Kira, on the other hand, actually does something when it comes to helping Coco gain along with Chaz. Unlike Coco LaBouche, who despises children, Kira actually loves children a lot more, to the point that when she heard the poem that Chaz said, it actually does suit a lot more when it comes to how they get along at the end. Even if it's mostly creepy for how Chaz wrote that poem, it's Rugrats comedy, so I can easily tell that this world building is a lot more awkward the more I watch the episodes, even if I don't plan on to. Besides, the fact that Coco only cares about herself while Kira actually cares about what's best for other people, it will probably be a lot more difficult for Coco to actually get along with other characters if she doesn't actually do everything or what a mother should really do. Let me just say this right now, as much as Kimmy and Kira's appearance is what people say that this show has jumped the shark, their appearance did a lot more worse. I'm just saying that right now. And if I'm ever going to talk about those types of episodes, it will probably be mostly a comparison of what Rugrats did right and what the Fairly Odd Parents did wrong, but I don't plan on making a video like that. But in my opinion of how the characters are portrayed in this movie, I can understand what people have the critiques on how terrible the people are in this movie, mainly the adult characters, but it's basically something that I can easily see what they're trying to do, because since that it's mostly settling around the babies and not on the adults, it's mostly suitable. If it was the other way around, then maybe it will make more sense. Besides, granted, I don't watch all the episodes from this show, and I don't plan on rewatching them. I can easily tell what the characters are when it comes to how they're portrayed in any situation. After watching these movies from time to time, I can easily tell what the characters act and how they affect the story in some other way. Mainly the episodes, at least. But just to get the biggest criticism out of the way, I still think that having the entire park taking place in Japan would have been a lot more better than it being randomly placed in Paris. Seriously, Chaz even mentioned that it was odd. I'm just gonna say this right now, I don't even understand onto how this movie is mostly a Paris movie. Well, most of the advertisements that I've seen centering around this movie involves the characters in Paris. But unfortunately, there were only little by little mentioning about Reptar and Reptar Land in general. Literally the only times where we get to see Paris in this movie is while Spike is hanging out with Fifi. That's literally the only bits, and the wedding that is all taking place is inside Notre Dame. And when you have Paris in the title of your movie, and you only have minimum scenes involving Paris, I honestly think that they didn't know what to do with a plot involving the characters going around in Paris and enjoying themselves. Let me just say this right now, I do not like Paris that much, considering I never went to there, but I can easily tell it's a really great place, and I'm pretty sure that if they went off to Japan, I'm pretty sure that Coco LaBouche will probably be a lot more different when it comes to how she's portrayed in this film. Yes, we're all fully aware that she creates Reptile Land, but at the same time, if we actually see her in Paris, it would have been a lot more obvious of how she would act towards other characters, because she probably lives in Paris at most because of her accent and stuff. Granted, this leads to an epic fight scene, but at the same time, it's literally the only thing that centers around Paris at most when it comes to Rugrats. And I'm just saying that the babies barely do much in Paris other than the fact that they spend most of the time in Reptile Land, which is mostly a Japanese theme park. I just don't understand how the world building in this movie mostly works. And when I say movie, I'm not referring to the show at least, because in the first movie it makes sense, and in the third movie it kind of makes sense that they're stranded on an island, but here I just don't think it really suits if this was all taking place into a different place like Japan. I know there are other moments in this movie that is mostly memorable, like the Chucky Chan bit, but considering this is mostly a showcase of what Chucky wants to be brave, I still think that the song itself did age well, but at the same time, it's mostly annoying. I'm just saying. It's mostly a relief that this movie isn't much of a musical, despite a few singing bits into it. It's not as terrible as what they portrayed singing in the first movie, and especially the third movie. But aside from most of the issues I have with this film, this is still the best movie involving the Rugrats, and I'm just gonna say this right now, I'm pretty sure that the reboot won't be able to do these ideas again. I didn't watch the reboot, but at the same time, I can easily tell that they're trying to do something different instead of just doing the same thing as before. Hopefully, they're going to take the reboot route a lot more seriously compared to other reboots out there. No offense, but reboots aren't really a good thing when it comes to the execution. Let me just say this right now, I've seen so many reviews centering around how reboots aren't really a good thing, but at the same time, other reboots like the Rugrats reboot can easily be mostly a benefit for what they can establish for returning characters, along with doing the world building all over again. But that's just mostly me though. I'm giving this movie a 7.5 out of 10. Not really one of my favorite movies after growing up a little bit to other franchises, but I will say that the Rugrats, when it comes to the original, can still stand out even after nearly 2 decades since it came to an end in 2004.
Let's get this started!